What, while you were sharing your progress, what kind of feedback did you get from people?
Feedback wise, I don't know. It's one of those things where some people were already doing similar things. So this whole modular degree concept I'm building out, I'm working on the template and the prototype, but the actual journey that I followed was been a little bit more just like, okay, I'm organizing my learning and I'm sharing my progress as best I can. And people have come up to me and they're like, this is exactly what I want to do. I don't want to go to college. I want to have my own alternative. So that's kind of the feedback I've been getting on that. But it's interesting, even before I started doing it, there was people who, like Scott Young, who did his MIT challenge, where he did like a 4-year MIT degree in 1 year by doing it himself. There was also Jonathan Haber, who did his own philosophy degree, or Lori Picard, who did no pay MBA, or she basically did an MBA through online courses. And so there's people who did it before me, but they were specialized. They were very niche. I wanted to do one that was polymathic and multidisciplinary. And I thought that was going to be the uniqueness of the modularity concept.
Is there something you're looking for, or something that you looked for but couldn't find?
I was looking for a tool that will allow me to organize and distribute all my content. And I think part of the problem was I was trying to find an all-in-one solution. Like, hey, is there a tool that allowed me to organize all my work that I'm doing, which Notion ended up turning out to be the perfect tool for that. And then there's also the tool of like actually scheduling out the content or repurposing and that kind of thing. Because there's some tools like Recast Studio or Repurpose.io that'll take your content and repurpose it for you. And sometimes it's manual, sometimes it's auto. It's just a matter of like going onto those tools and using them or affording them. And I think those are great, but there's only a certain point of per content piece. There's not a lot of scheduling out ahead of time kind of thing. Whereas there's like co-schedule or missing letter, where you can set up schedules where you can actually repurpose, or not repurpose, but resend out that same piece of content over and over again. Other tools will have this idea of like, hey, we could just retweet it essentially, or reshare it over and over again, because then you're just, or scummy, because you're not contextualizing the time. Like when I said a week later, I would say in the text box, last week I released this video, you should check it out. Or a month ago, like, hey, about a month ago I sent this out, you should probably check it out just in case you missed it.
What are some hidden gems that you discovered over the years?
So the ones I just mentioned, for example, Notion.so, which is a all-in-one productivity solution, so to speak. And I'm not sure how much you've used it per se, but like it's one of those things where I put my entire life into it. And actually one of my things I'm working on right now, the modular degree for one, but also my content production system, as well as my whole Polyinnovation operating system, like my whole life OS, if you will. I put it all in Notion. And I'm going to be releasing those templates down the line too, hopefully soon. And then other tools, Repurpose.io or Recast Studio. Those are some repurposing tools. And then Zapier, Automate.io, if this and that. Those are some of the automation tools that I mentioned earlier, how I have automation set up. Since I can't afford to pay for pro memberships, and oftentimes they're kind of expensive anyways for very little amount that you get, I just used multiple different tools in combination rather than get one tool and pay for it.
Right.
It's like, eh.
So why do you think they're hidden to begin with?
Well, first off, I mean, I found Repurpose.io very early on, but I could not find it. Like when I did search, I would go on rabbit holes and big swath dives, if you will, on all these different contexts. Like I'll look at content repurposing as a term. I would look on Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo and just look at the images and search and news and videos and all those different channels and go to the bottom of the list essentially and find all the links, all the interesting images, all the interesting videos, open up a new tab and try to consume that content just so I could see what I can learn. And I mean, I've done this countless times over the years and I never found tools. I never found any solutions per se until I finally came across Repurpose.io. And nowadays there's actually more tools out there. Like just recently, I found a tool that allows you to repurpose your Twitch clips, right? If you're a Twitch gamer or even just any kind of live streamer in general, so like podcasting, there's tools that'll take your clips from YouTube or Twitch. You put the link in there, it'll set you up to where you can actually like make a TikTok version of your video from that clip. And it's like, you can take, like, let's say in this video here, like you have me, you want to take a picture of my talking head. You, for some reason, want to take a picture of the bookshelf, and you can put them into a vertical format and have them squished together. So instead of having this wide video, you have a TikTok video. And you could change the format of the video through this tool and take little sections that you want. Or if you're playing a game, you could take the little HUD at the top and put it into the video. I thought, or like, for example, too, you have you right here, right? You're right above me on the Zoom call. You can be right above me with the title of the show, and then I'm right below you with some captions below. Those are tools that you can find or use in order to make TikTok videos off of your podcast. That's why I think they're hitting, because a lot of people don't know about them, let alone use them.
Do you get any feedback on the way you communicate? I have something in mind. There's a very interesting speech pattern that I think you have, but I'm interested if somebody else told you about that.
I would say that, for example, one of the skills I actively try to teach myself was active listening. And I've even tried doing it in this call too, where I try to shut up and listen to what you're saying too, and like make sure I'm actually being polite as a guest. But as a host, especially since I talk so much and I do ramble, I do get excited and talk fast, I realize that like I need to make sure I don't interrupt my guests. I don't want to offend them by interrupting them. And so I actively worked on active listening. And one of my friends in real life, when she heard my show or watched my videos, she was like dumbfounded that I could shut up for that long, which I thought was really funny. But that's kind of what comes to mind.
No, I'm impressed by the word that comes to mind is rapid fire style of information, which is, you know, it is really impressive, like how much you can store and then communicate. Think of how I speak; it's much more kind of like chunky, there's much more hesitation, which is impressive, I find.
Thank you. Someone did say I talk like a stock reel of information.
The what? Like a what?
Like a stock reel. So I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but like in the US, for example, we'll have the news channels, and if people want to keep up with stocks, you look at the bottom part of the
yeah. That's a good observation.
Well, and I also would say too, I've been practicing. Like right now, I'm looking at the camera, for example. Instead of looking at you, I'm looking at the camera.
You have the capability of facilitating a conversation between any two people in the world. Who would you choose? And what would you ask them?
Like if I had an opportunity to interview two people, or like set up, I don't understand the question too well. All right.
Okay, set up conversation between two people.
Someone who I really admire and I interviewed on my show is Dr. Merritt Moore. She is known as a quantum ballerina. She's a quantum physicist, but also prolific ballerina. And she also wants to become an astronaut. Like those are three areas that are just so different. But I know for a fact that the way she lives her life, she can balance them out and make them fit, make them work. Like the way she explains it to and the way she thinks, I know for a fact they all come together. I think that finding a way to connect her with somebody who could help her with the astronaut like endeavor, or maybe someone who's at NASA, or maybe someone who's at SpaceX, like, or maybe Elon Musk, like literally get Elon Musk and Merritt Moore together. I think that would be really interesting, for example. And in fact, just a little tidbit, one of my future shows that I'm doing, I have sequel series for my show. The original one is like a long form, hour and a half on average, like interview, but then I'm going to have like a rapid fire round 2 polycast, which is like a 30-minute tops, like what's new with you. It might even be live streamed. It's short. I may not even edit it if it's live streamed, like a very short one. But the one after that is called the triple threat, where I'll have 2 people on at the same time, maybe even 3, and have them all kind of go at this multidisciplinary Socratic conversation. So my question was a little bit more on the macro. I still want to kind of get your motivation and your mindset on like, what is your ultimate goal? Like, what do you want to be like your magnum opus of your life?
That's a big one.
That's what I'm most interested in. I want to see where your brain leads to.
Yeah, so I think that the mission that I formulated is the idea of hidden gems. So something that I noticed a lot is that there is a mismatch between the quality of an idea and the amount of fame or attention it has. So lots of times I'm like, when I encounter a tool or a website or person, I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Very few people know about it. And I have this kind of like, look at this is amazing. How talking about this is just like, look at this. So my kind of like grand vision is that I want to be able to collect these items and then shed light on them. So part of this is this podcast is that I want to so there's two kind of like opposing things going on. One is like I want to talk to influencers so that I want to build the following so that at the end it will have a lot of following. But at the same, after like a year or two or something, like let's say the podcast becomes like 20,000 people or like 100,000 people follow them, then I'd start like doing podcasts on people that I find for whatever reason great and amazing, but they don't have the exposure that they deserve. So that's what I'm aiming for.
Why wait? Why are you waiting until that point of metrics? Why don't you start doing it now and build up like a secondary series? Like I told you, I have multiple series for my show. That would be a perfect like small series for you, and then you could have it like alongside the interviews.
That's an idea. That's another idea. That's another strategy to go at it.
Yeah. But if that's what you're really identifying as, like finding those hidden gems, the diamonds in the rough, you can kind of say like, yes, they might have a following. Yes, they've done these certain things, but you just wish that they had more attention. You want to apply more attention to them. And if you actively say that a lot, like, hey, even if these people have like a lot of stuff they've already done or that kind of thing, you only want to increase their visibility. And when you say it like that, it makes them think like, okay, maybe I'm not a hidden gem, but I'll be one for you just because of the way you say it. Like make them feel special.
Right.
And then there was the other thing I was thinking too, is just, what was it? Oh no. Yeah, I totally agree. It was like, there's sometimes I'll find super awesome posts. Am I frozen?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I'll find these really awesome posts that I'm really excited about, but then like I'm never able to share it with people. So like those content repurposing tools, for example, there was no, I literally looked on for that term, content repurposing tools on Google, and I maybe found 3 out of 20 of the ones that I knew about. So I made a post, the best content repurposing tools out there, and I ranked them based on my opinion and usage, and I was like, okay, cool. And that way people had access to the links of these pages. And I made a video based off of it too, and had the same links in that description of that video. So that way there's more out there for people to find. And that's another point. We talked about creating content and repurposing content, but there's a third one. There's curating content. There's some brands out there who have built up their entire following based off of just pure curation. And one thing I'm planning on doing at least, is curating Polymath content. So I have a whole list of posts, articles, and podcasts of Polymathy and generalist and jack of all trades. And I'm going to make a tweet and a long form post based off of every article and video with my own two cents, and then put that out on like a daily basis. And that's how I feel like I'm going to build out a lot of following too, just by making those posts.
Right. One thing last thing I would say, it's also the opposite is true. Sometimes I find extremely mundane content where somebody will just say like, good morning, Facebook, or good morning, LinkedIn. And then you find like thousands and thousands of likes and shares and all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh, goodness me, what's happening here?
Right. And I think there's two, like sometimes with people like you and I, we find those hidden gems a little bit easier just because we're more excited and we search for them and we have our own ways of researching and stuff like that. And so we're kind of like disseminators. A friend of mine is literally building their brand around disseminating big ideas. And I think that's kind of what you and I are doing in our own right too. We're disseminating the big stuff and making it into more palatable things for people who don't have the time to spend the deepness.